and then we will go to the agenda. Once again, great evening, everybody. Happy March 13th. This is our monthly statewide strategy meeting. My name is Kamula Tillman from Piscataway, New Jersey. I'm a part of the Piscataway Progressive Democrats, vice president, and a proud member of this wonderful initiative called Voter Choice New Jersey. I serve in the capacity of team lead for fundraising. So I will come on again and talk to you soon about how you really can support such a wonderful reformative initiative. As I have introduced myself, once again, if you have not done so, there's two things going on. There's an introduction in the chat where you just introduce yourself, tell us anything you want, where you're from, any affiliations if you like. And also there's a sign-in sheet. We like to keep in touch and keep a running tally of who shows up, who's expressed an interest, and also most importantly, how to keep connected with you so we can form an alliance to continue our movement. Is that all right? Okay, so as you guys do that, I'm going to kind of go over the agenda. There is an agenda. If you want to scroll back through the chat, if that could be posted again, just so you'll see, what's going on and how we run our meetings. We're going to focus a lot on our social media. So if you haven't done so, again, introduce your chat, your town, and things of that nature. It is now 6:35, so I'm going to turn it over to April Nicholas from New Brunswick to give us an abbreviated overview of the Voter Choice New Jersey campaign. So yeah. April, take it away.
I got this meeting starting right now, so can I talk to you in about an hour?
Okay. Can you put yourself on mute?
Talk to you, I'll call you.
All right, well, we can get started. Herb, would you be able to bring up the slides for me, please?
Mm-hmm. You see them okay?
Yes, but can you go back to the first slide?
Oh, sorry.
All right, everyone gets to see what's coming up next. Sneak preview. All right, well, we can go to the next slide. So yes, like Kamala said, I'm just going to do a brief overview of Voter Choice New Jersey's campaign to win ranked choice voting in our state. Next slide, Herb. So I imagine most of us here already have a baseline familiarity with ranked choice voting, and we all have various reasons for why we support it. There are a lot of problems with our current election system right now. Toxic polarization and hyperpartisanship, for one, the public being driven further apart as they rush into camps of just the two major parties. Naturally, this leads to dysfunction and gridlock. And to make things worse, in most New Jersey elections right now, candidates don't even need the support of a majority of voters to win. So you might have a candidate with the support of only 30-some% of voters who wins, even though the vast majority of voters may not really want that person in office. And the fact that the two major party candidates are the only ones seen as viable also means that any other candidates who throw their hat in the ring are generally labeled as spoilers, and voters who favor those candidates are put in a really difficult position of whether or not to vote strategically for a candidate other than their favorite, or voting for their favorite and being told their vote is wasted in that circumstance. And ranked choice voting helps to address all of those many issues. Next slide. So Voter Choice New Jersey's ultimate goal is to get ranked choice voting in place for all New Jersey elections. Now, understandably, given the inertia in government and how challenging democracy reform is to win in general, this is a pretty tall order. So to reach this visionary future, we need clear goals that will make tangible progress on the path to getting RCV for all of our elections. So our goals for our 3-year strategic campaign: one is to get ranked choice voting in use for general elections for all state and federal races. And the other is to enable ranked choice voting to be adopted for all local elections, including through voter initiative. Of course, it wouldn't be New Jersey politics without some additional hurdles to make things a little bit more complicated, because New Jersey's constitution states that governor and lieutenant governor must be the candidates that win, quote, the most votes, the most as opposed to the majority, which is the whole thing that underpins ranked choice voting and its benefits. Getting ranked choice voting in place for the governor's race would require constitutional amendment. And while that's definitely a worthwhile thing to work for, Our goal in the next 3 years is to prioritize making ranked choice voting the norm for as many elections in as many places as possible, so New Jerseyans can start seeing the benefits of RCV straight away. And so for the time being, we're focused on winning RCV for all local, state, and federal races, and the governorship will be further along down the road. All right, so that's a lot to do. How do we do that? Next slide. Oh wait, no, you're already there. While democracy reform can be complicated and politics are challenging, the way that we'll win ranked choice voting ultimately boils down to this. We need everyone in New Jersey to know about it, understand it, support it, and then turn that support into action. And that is how we will build the power that we need to win, both at the state level and in cities and towns across New Jersey. At the state level, we'll be working to introduce and pass 2 bills. The first bill that we will be working on is state enabling legislation. So that's to enable ranked choice voting to be adopted for all local elections. Right now, New Jersey election law isn't written to allow for locals to choose a system like ranked choice voting for their elections, so we need to open that up. And we think we can convince state legislators to pass that bill by rallying support for RCV among local leaders, so city councils, mayors, etc. We will be working to pass trigger ordinances in towns across the state to, one, show support among local elected officials for ranked choice voting and prove to state leaders that there's an appetite. And 2, the benefit of trigger ordinances is that it will set us up for a ballot question once state enabling legislation is passed, a ballot question that will ask voters of that town, do you want to use ranked choice voting for your local elections? Which is then the next step to getting RCV actually implemented. If you want to know more about trigger ordinances, I'm sure someone at some point can dig up the recording from our last monthly meeting, where we talked all about local organizing and the tool of trigger ordinances that we are using to build momentum at the local level. And that's a lot of good info that if you're interested in pursuing some local action in your town, you can reach out and we will help you do that. But trigger ordinances are definitely a key part of our strategy right now and towards getting ranked choice voting implemented and in use in the future. And then the next bill that we are aiming to pass, the second bill after the state enabling legislation, is a bill that would require ranked choice voting to be in use for all state and federal elections. So as I was talking about before, it's a little bit of an asterisk, not including the governorship, because that requires a separate fight over a constitutional amendment. But that would mean positions like state senators and assembly people and members of Congress would be elected in all cases through ranked choice voting, regardless of where in the state someone lives and how they may be electing their local officials. So that is the basics for the 2 state bills that we're working to pass. But local organizing is really critical because we want to actually bring ranked choice voting to as many New Jerseyans as possible. We don't just want to pass a state bill that allows RCV's use in local elections. We want to actually use RCV in as many local elections as possible. So we'll be helping local activists on the ground to pass RCV for their towns through ordinances or through voter initiatives where possible. That is a big focus. We had a lot of chatter about that last month. So again, if you missed last month's meeting, I'll after I'm done with my presentation here, I'll try and dig up the recording from our previous meeting, unless someone has already posted that, so that folks can go back to that later on and learn a little bit more in detail about our local organizing strategy. All right. Next slide. Okay, so I'll say just a smidge more on local organizing because it's so important, but there's a lot more to talk about. So if you are interested in doing local work in your own town, please say that in the chat and we'll follow up with you later on and help you get something moving. So there's a lot to do. Thankfully, a lot of people that are excited to get involved, and even more people out there who haven't heard about this movement yet and will be excited to get on board once we reach them with our message. Much of the local organizing work that we are doing happens through town teams taking charge and doing the work in the communities that they know better than anyone. And our Voter Choice New Jersey teams will be driving engagement and providing support, access to resources, expertise, guidance to do the work as efficiently and effectively as possible on the ground. And there are a lot of ways for people to get involved, whether someone wants to contribute in small ways or take the lead and start the ball rolling. We have a lot of ideas of strategic activities to do locally, like local petitions, local official and candidate engagement, increasing our visibility through digital organizing, planning events, engaging with the media, which is what we're talking more about today. We are using targeted organizing to identify which towns are most ripe for change. And additionally, we are considering towns in key districts of legislative power players. So Senate President Scutari and Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, for example. We're targeting towns that use nonpartisan elections with runoffs, as well as those with a right to citizen initiative. And of course, working in towns of any kind, of any persuasion, where we have local activists on the ground who want to start doing the work. And as an organization, our teams, our central statewide teams are arranged to support these strategic efforts. If you go to the next slide, there's a quick visual on what our statewide team structure looks like. So for our state teams, we have quite a large array of teams that have dedicated functions. A lot of what we do is focused on driving our strategy for local organizing as well as state legislative work. And then you can see the color coding that we have here indicates where our needs are with each of these teams. So if you are new to the organization, you're trying to get a sense of how you might get involved. Local organizing is a great way, but getting involved in our state teams is also an excellent opportunity to make a difference on ranked choice voting. Most of our teams could make great use of additional members. And then there are a few where we are in need of some more active leadership for anyone who wants to take a step up and run their own team. So if you're interested in doing that or in getting involved in any of these teams, then please reach out, because we are most certainly looking for more folks to help with our central team efforts so we can really drive our strategy forward and win ranked choice voting in towns and cities across the state. And that's what I got. I'm going to pass it over to Renee, who's going to share a couple of highlights that we have.
Well, I better unmute myself. Hi, everyone. So April, do you want to, I'm Renee Steinhagen. I'm the executive lead of this organization. And I am just going to share with you some things that have happened since we have since last month. So the Speakers Bureau is starting to become very active again. When we first started, there were some initial bites for getting to understand ranked choice voting. I think that was very much at the time that the Massachusetts petition and effort was going on for statewide ranked choice voting. And then we had a second spurt of interest around New York City's primary, which was also run by ranked choice voting. But now again, I think due to our efforts and talking to our friends, we're starting to get more bites at the apple. We've been asked by a group in Howell, possibly Howell First is willing to hear from us. Recently, the League of Women Voters in Bergen County is asking that we can make a presentation to their county chapter. And I believe we're getting a couple of bites of apples of different groups in Montclair, New Jersey. So the other important thing that has happened is we've sort of confirmed with Senator Zwicker that the bill that we have submitted to him to potentially introduce and to enable ranked choice voting in all local jurisdictions, just so people understand, we're trying to create an enabling bill that leaves as much flexibility to localities. We've been told that that bill has been submitted to RLS, and our fingers are crossed that it will be returned quickly and that what they've produced is something that we can get behind. Because once a bill is introduced and we start doing the more traditional lobbying of finding sponsors, finding primary sponsors and not so and co-sponsors, and even doing our local work, I believe that once people know there's an enabling bill sitting in the legislature, they'll be more willing to put the effort out to see if we can get a trigger ordinance passed in the municipality. The reality is that the trigger ordinance itself, to some people, is very hypothetical, and it's a little bit like, what are we passing here? But in fact, all it does is it actually sends a message to the state that there are municipalities that are interested in using ranked choice voting. And it sets the stage for one of the most important elements of our strategy, which is that the voters themselves will ultimately approve the adoption of ranked choice voting. That is something that we think is just essential to our strategy, because one does not want to foist new ways of doing things on people. One wants them to experience it, explore it, try it, and hopefully like it. So with that, I'll turn it back for the main discussion tonight, which is about our media strategy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that, Renee, and for the introduction, April. For those of you who don't know me, my name is TJ Magno. You might remember when I came by to talk at the statewide meeting, I believe last July or August. I was then the executive director at Ranked Choice New York, the sister organization under Rank the Vote. And, I'd seen firsthand what ranked choice voting looked like in action in New York City. So Ranked Choice New York, was very hands-on, talking with a bunch of different organizations. We've kind of been through that process of, seeing how it rolls out and how people respond to it. And, one thing that we noticed was, right afterward, people, or in the run-up to, people just want to know more. Like, what does this change? If you're in a place in somewhere else in New York State that doesn't have ranked choice voting, you might be looking at New York City and saying, what's going on over there? So definitely an opportunity for Voter Choice New Jersey to come in and help educate some voters and, just bring ranked choice voting in front of people's eyes. So, like I mentioned in the chat, I live in Hoboken now. I just moved to Hoboken back in November. And, as April pointed out too, Hoboken was the first city in New Jersey to pass one of these trigger ordinances unanimously too. In a city that's kind of known for a little bit of, local politics fun. It passed unanimously. Everyone was on the same boat. Only positive comments there. So a little bit about what we're going to be talking today, the media strategy. My background is in process and operations. I've been involved in politics from the school board level up to volunteering on presidential campaigns. And like I said, running the show at Ranked Choice New York. For Voter Choice New Jersey, with all this great news, Hoboken passing the trigger ordinance, a lot of interest from other cities. I've been working April on this process for ultimately getting the Voter Choice New Jersey strategy ramped up, building that voter education across the state, and ultimately getting more elected officials to support these trigger ordinances that we're helping to push through the city councils. So I have a link right here for an article that I wrote. Renee helped me out with this draft here, and we got it published in newjersey.com. So I saw this as an opportunity to kind of take the learnings from this whole process and kind of just make sure that it's repeatable for anybody else within Voter Choice New Jersey or any potential volunteers who come on board who want to get to writing. So it's super important. I just want to reiterate that we get ranked choice voting media pieces out there. And I'll go into a little bit, how this looks. But just to circle back on the voter education part is the main thing here. It's the biggest hurdle that ranked choice voting faces. But with over 10 million people in the United States now using ranked choice voting, either at the state or municipal level, it's definitely gaining traction. So we want to be able to run with this. And we just need to get, pro ranked choice voting articles out there in front of people. Any New Jerseyans who don't know about it, to get them to know it in the first place, or anybody who does know about it to actually start taking action and bring it to their elected officials. So let's start talking about what we are focusing on here. So Voter Choice New Jersey is focusing on pushing out right now opinion-based articles to educate New Jerseyans about ranked choice voting. So once we do this and once we continue to grow support for it, as new cities get brought on in support of these trigger ordinances, as more elected officials come out in favor of it publicly, we'll move into a phase of more earned media. That's where, the press follows the successes of ranked choice voting campaign and Voter Choice New Jersey in particular. They start following us, our work. They start asking for interviews, basically doing the writing for us. But until we get to that point, it's kind of on us to go from having this idea of wanting to write something, wanting to get eyeballs on pro ranked choice voting pieces, and just getting it out there in the first place. So April and I worked on a voter choice media strategy document right here. So I'll just post that in the chat as well. Here we have a letter to the editor template and this ordinance tracking sheet as well that's linked there. Really just an overview of how to go from wanting to write about it to getting it actually posted online somewhere. And, Voter Choice New Jersey is here to help anyone who wants to, go through this process, whether it's starting at the drafting phase, being in the revising phase, or actually, having a finished product and then just finally getting it live and out on the internet. So in short, the game plan is, if you want to write some ranked choice voting letters to the editors, check out this guide that I just posted in the chat. Let us know too that you want to work on this, and we'll get to work and try to get as many eyeballs on ranked choice voting as possible. Now just a little point to the messaging component. So before, I don't want to just sit here and, say, here are these links, go ahead, go right. So before we actually get started with this, I just want to touch on something that I've learned both from my time leading Ranked Choice New York and, just writing myself on the side, and that's on the messaging component. Messaging is key. So whenever you start writing, you just want to ask yourself, how do you want to come off to the reader? How do we want to brand ranked choice voting? Because, at the end of the day, we're trying to persuade potential supporters into becoming adamant supporters and turning adamant supporters into volunteers or people who will connect with their local officials. One thing that I always leaned on was, making sure that I reference that this is an innovative solution tried by over 10 million Americans to help us make politics work for the people, not for politicians. One question I would get asked when Ranked Choice New York was doing any speaking engagements, if it's the League of Women Voters or, whoever it may be, is, they feel very comforted by the fact that so many Americans use ranked choice voting. So we just need to bring the success that's happening all across the country and make it local and make it understandable for anybody in New Jersey across the state. So this really is, just starting at a point of education. So really, who's the audience? I think we can kind of bucket it out into two different audiences. One, we're trying to obviously get ranked choice voting articles in front of public eyes. Really just, any readers of local papers, always keeping in mind, asking yourself, do the readers here lean Republican? Do they lean Democrat? Somewhere in between, because anytime you are able to distill who's going to be reading what you're writing, you want to be able to talk to them in a language that everybody in that group easily understands. And then the second bucket here is, elected officials. When we're ultimately at the point of, kind of like mass adoption, mass education in any specific locality, being able to approach an elected official and understanding them as their own audience, are they open-minded to a potential policy like this? How long have they been in office? Would they potentially be dissuaded by, this potentially shaking up their vote and, might even lose their seat because of it? Are they a leader and, they want to take up the mantle of somebody who's really working for democracy reform? So I know that's a lot all out there, but we'll move forward to this last section. It's, kind of just tie everything up, and in short, if you want to work on this, let us know and we'll help. That's the bottom line. You want to touch on pretty much every aspect, just get everybody thinking about, what it takes to kind of get to the point from idea to pen and paper to post online. So a lot of this process really depends on getting an elected official or news publication on board to support ranked choice voting in the first place, for them to post it or publicly come out and support. And transparently, that's the hard part. However, once you feel like you have an idea and you want to get writing and you get some words onto a Google Doc, then the ask becomes much easier. It's so much easier to approach someone with something hard evidence, or just some proof of work, saying, hey, let's look at this, instead of saying, I'd love to pick your brain, I'd love to start from scratch or somewhere. So this is probably if there's one key takeaway, just start writing. Just get words on paper. And, even if it's a difficult task to get a news publication to publish it, or an elected official, say, for example, isn't answering emails or anything, there's plenty of independent publications that you can simply get it posted to, if it's Medium, or if it's Substack, or if it's the Voter Choice New Jersey blog right on the website. Bottom line is just getting ranked choice voting pieces online, and then the community that we have in the democracy reform, the broader community of democracy reform will kind of reinforce anything that we see online. So, how many people do we have on this call here? We have 24 people, including myself. So right there, for example, if I posted something to Substack and shared with the Voter Choice New Jersey list, maybe that's 23 retweets on my piece right there, or 23 shares on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm always thinking 6 degrees of separation, where, just get something posted and then let it kind of expand naturally how it does within the community. Hopefully it breaks down some barriers of, just getting from within the ranked choice voting community to, a much broader audience. So if you do have an idea of a piece that you want to write, reach out. So we have April here. I'll be sure, I haven't been looking at the chat, so apologies if this was already there. But April's leading up the messaging team, and that's her email right there. Let her know. I'm willing to be a helping hand through this process as well. Just refer back to that media strategy doc that I referenced, and I'll paste again in here. And really, hopefully, this is just a way for people to realize that there is, the biggest barrier is just getting words to paper, and then from there, we'll get to work and make sure that it's disseminated across the internet, and people learn about it, and from there, hopefully, get the elected officials on support, and then ultimately get statewide adoption. That's the dream. So that is the media strategy presentation on my end. I'm happy to answer any questions right now, or however we're going to do this moving forward in the agenda. I know we have a large discussion coming up, so I guess we'll leave it to that. Back to April.
Or back to Kamala as the.
Kamala. There we go.
So thank you guys, TJ, thank you. The information you shared, I hope you guys were able to get a copy of that and open that up and save it somewhere. It's a great template to use to start. And I think you said it best, TJ, just get started writing your thoughts and ideas. But once you have that, at least there's some structure to make sure that it's cohesive. So thank you for coming, and thank you for presenting that information. Now, what we want to do at this point is we're going to have a discussion on media strategy for about 20 minutes or so. It's not a huge number of us today, but we want to kind of keep it in the main room if you guys are okay. If not, maybe we can break up into 2 or 3 Zoom rooms. So Herb, are you prepared to just keep us here, or should we open up a room? The focus again today is on social media strategy. So we want to kind of, we like to engage the guests as they come, because sometimes our brains get fried and we run out of ideas, but you are affiliated with so many great organizations. You may have some strategies that you may be able to share to continue to help us push this initiative, or you may want to come involved and do some op-ed writing here for Voter Choice New Jersey. So we want to take about 20-25 minutes to have a discussion on that. I'll come back in to kind of close the meeting out. So I think we're going to stay here. Is that correct, April? Or are we going to do breakout rooms?
It depends on what folks want to do. Actually, Andrew is here though. Andrew, did you have anything you want to add?
Oh, yes.
You're muted. There you go.
Oh, no. TJ did a great job. Nothing to
Yeah.
add.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to see you.
Yeah, so as far as the discussion, I think you know we have a large enough group that we could move to breakouts, but we also have a comfortable enough size that
Right.
it wouldn't be too overwhelming to have a large group based discussion.
Now, here's the
there's-
catch. If we
No.
stay in a large group, I'm going to ask that you at least participate, even if it's in the chat, even if it's a question.
Hey,
Any participation.
Kamala's a
Why
teacher,
don't-
so she's not going to
I
let you
am.
slide.
teacher Camilla, would you lead writing a letter to the editor that we can all just contribute to the letter of the editor and write it right here? See if we can do it
For
in
me?
20 minutes.
Ooh, that would be interesting but tough, but I think I could. Well,
And
before
then you can pick up the law mantle of a law professor. That means you start
Oh my
calling on
gosh.
people, even if they're
You
not.
know, I
prepared
dropped out
to
of law
answer.
school.
No, even if they're not prepared to answer, then, you know, you
Well,
sort of put people on the spot.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say, maybe we could go around and talk about, I think the best op-eds are personal in nature. And they go
Yes.
and they talk about, where you're coming from and why you believe in something. And I think maybe we could talk about like, what's our own personal experiences? Where are we coming from it?
I love that idea. And I think it's a great way to keep everyone engaged. And again, you're in this meeting for Voter Choice New Jersey, our statewide meeting, because either you're interested or you want to help. One or two of those. So it's a great way to get your input and your feedback and see how we can form alliances to continue to help each other's movement initiatives. So I am going to start since I kind of got the mic. My name is Kamula Tillman, and I am a staunch advocate for ranked choice voting, simply because it is the truest essence of really allowing the voters' voice to be heard. There's no lying voting, there's no getting the line. If you think that you can secure the voice of the people, then you run. If you think you need the line to win, then you were going to object against voter choice. I think it's a welcoming way to let the best man win and truly honor the voice of the people. Too many times there's been such a disconnect. And sometimes when you're career politicians, it happens. This is a way to restore our voices, to change apathetic, unaffiliated voters, and even create party lines that are just not two. So I like it when everyone feels that they can participate in this process and feel that their voice truly matters. As Fannie Lou Hamer said, some of us are just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we want to change because we want to be heard. And I think that's one of the key components that ranked choice voting allow us to do. It allows us to feel empowered. It allows us to feel noticed, valued, and that our concerns really do matter. And I think that's something people want more and more today than any time ever before. So that's one of my reasons why I want to stay involved with ranked choice voting and make sure that it comes here to New Jersey.
Looks like Larry's up next with his hand up.
Thanks, Herb. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Sorry I was a little late today. I'm
Could you speak
toying
up a
with
little
this
bit, Larry, or move a little closer to the mic? Sorry.
Sorry. I'm toying with this idea in terms of opening presentations with the Speakers Bureau, but I'm concerned about a negative tone. So I'm just going to put it out there. But the main reason why I'm involved with Voter Choice New Jersey is because I'm tired of going into the voting booth holding my nose in order to cast my vote. And voter choice allows for other voices to play the game at a fairly even playing field with the two-party duopoly, who also are constantly trying to control the situation so that it doesn't move beyond the two-party duopoly. So, that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I feel that that's something that resonates with people across political party boundaries. So, curious to get some reaction to that.
Well, thanks, Larry. I think Agnes, you're up next.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I have similar reasons for being involved, but as far as strategy, Kamala mentioned social media, but I thought maybe we talk about regular traditional video media. I know on the Fair Vote website, they have a press section with resources for visual media, broadcast media. And I was wondering if we have any strategies in that area. That would be something I would like to explore. I'm not good at writing letters to the editor, but I think we live in a visual medium, a visual age, and social media, yes, but also things like your local broadcast station. If we had even video press releases ready to go, in surrounding a certain trigger ordinance being passed, that we could offer like a packaged thing to the local media. They might just run it. They might run it with their own announcer, but I think that might be a strategy we could consider.
Oh, great, Agnes, thanks.
I love that.
But when you say video press releases, you mean like we would have a written press release, but then we would also have a video of someone like announcing the
Right,
content
just
of
something
that?
called a video news release where you put
Right.
together a package that you want to see, and then you have like someone acting as a reporter. I'm Kamula, live from Hoboken.
That's great. Cool.
And then you give them all the other
Ooh,
pieces.
live from the bedroom.
Right. You give them all the other
So-
pieces without your reporter, and then they can add their own, or they could use yours. A lot of local outlets will just use yours because it's handy and they don't have the manpower. But if you give them all the other pieces, they could quickly edit together with their own announcer, their own on-camera talent. Just
So Agnes, would it be like putting together a YouTube video, but actually do we have local stations that we could send something to?
It would be like, yes, you would put the whole thing together
Mhm.
as a package, but you would also have the elements, the B-roll, the interviews, and even graphics or whatever that you might want to, and then you offer the whole thing as a package. So you'd have like maybe a 2-minute, minute and a half little story, and then you would have the elements so that you're not like saying you must run this like this. Here's what we thought should be. And a lot of people are just, oh yeah, we'll take that. Like Channel 12 News, or I don't know. There's like a local Verizon
New
News
Jersey,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Agnes,
News
does
Spotlight.
that require an event at which you're reporting on, or you're creating it? Meaning
Well,
like,
it would have been nice if we had thought, maybe if I had thought of this about the Hoboken
okay,
trigger ordinance. An event is much easier, to sell, basically.
well, so why don't we just plan on the next trigger ordinance that we're going to have either people presenting at a city council meeting, or if we go the route of an initiative petition of the trigger ordinance itself, that evening where it gets certified as sufficient and is presented to the city council, and the city council has to open up public hearings on it, that might be a trigger. No, that would be the base event for your.
Or you
for
could
your
you could
video.
lure them out. Like if it's something that goes on for a couple of meetings, they have to introduce it. Then they have to, how ordinances work. You have to write a resolution, blah, blah, blah. So if we're there, we create the package around the first event and then hand it off. That might lure them to the event when they're actually voting on it. They might bring their own, we might get more press to the event. So yeah, I mean, especially if it's something that has like kind of a long little shelf life that we could build up with. Yeah, or
Well, we
either
can
way.
also, we can put things in our control, and we can do that in the context of organizing a Faulkner or Walsh Act petition. Because you can show people organizing the petition, going out and trying to get voters, having a discussion with a voter who signs it.
Right, and just couch it in a reporting kind of way,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, and it looks enough like news. You see them all the time. You just, a lot of times you don't realize that it's coming from a company or an organization. But because of the lack
It's
of
an
manpower in newsrooms.
it's a 3-minute advertisement is what it is, Agnes.
Exactly,
And that's,
it's exactly what it is.
but
Yeah,
you can, but this way you control the content.
you do.
agreed. I like that.
Okay, so we can maybe work on some of that kind of stuff. Okay.
Thank
And
you,
then we-
Agnes.
but let's go back to people saying what is the reason that they are attracted to ranked choice
Sure.
voting.
Barry's up next. Go ahead, Barry.
And then Jim is.
Yeah,
up
no,
next.
I mean, going on what Larry said, and a lot of it has to do with what Larry was saying. But see, ranked choice voting allows you to vote honestly. You know, that's how I look at it. Because a lot of times we go in and vote and like, oh, I'm going to vote for this one because I don't want that one. Well, ranked choice voting will allow you to vote for somebody who is closest, in a sense, to your heart. Okay, even though you say, oh, they may not have a chance, but it could change that whole aura that, oh, I can't vote for this guy because he doesn't have a chance. Because when people get used to ranked choice voting, okay, those people will have a chance. You know what I'm saying? And it can change the whole complexion of our electoral system, make it more democratic, etc. You know, and I mean that's the reason that I just learned about ranked choice voting. Gosh, maybe like 3-4 years ago, and to me, it just makes so much sense that you want the person who wins your election to have support of at least more than 50% of the people who voted. You know what I'm saying? That to me, that just makes sense. That's democracy as far as I'm concerned. But that's why I'm on board.
Thank you, Barry. Again, I got muted. I see Jim, Ken, Sally.
Hi, everyone. Jim Tassone. I'm with the New Jersey Libertarian Party, and I could write letters to the editor that talk about my personal experience and how I could benefit from ranked choice voting. I ran for New Jersey State Senate in Legislative District 39 in Northern Bergen County in 2017 and 2021. And I ran for US House of Representatives in Congressional District 5 in 2018. And I can't tell you the number of times people came up to me during those campaigns and said, you know, you're actually my first choice, but I'm afraid if I vote for you, I'm going to tilt the election to the person I hate the most. And so sometimes when you're customizing letters to the editor, talking not just about in the abstract, but how something has affected you personally can be an effective thing to do. And I would also be happy to share some of the media contact information that I was able to develop over the course of those campaigns, some email addresses, some Twitter handles, and the like. Now, people often move around a lot, so you don't always get responses and you get some bounce backs and things like that, but you might be able to integrate that in with whatever media contacts you currently have to supplement and expand that.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Go ahead. I think Ken was next. I
Okay.
see-
Yeah, well, Jim stole my
forget your April.
thunder. I'm also in the Libertarian Party, and I've run for office many times, including for governor of New Jersey 3 times. And the number of times I've heard people say, oh, I like what you're saying, but I don't want to waste my vote. Or when I've urged people to vote for Libertarian presidential candidates, I don't want to waste my vote. And again, what Jim said about them being so afraid in this polarized climate that the person they hate most will get elected. And it would just be such a great opportunity if we had ranked choice voting, then people wouldn't have that worry.
So true, Ken. That's so true. And thank you again for sharing that. Sally, Steve, Andrew, I see you put your hand, and I want to get back to April. I was trying to save you for last April, but I did see you.
Yeah, the other thing is that even if, a third party candidate doesn't win, the number of votes they get on a ranked choice ballot gives a message to the two main party candidates. So at least at first, that's a step forward. And then ultimately, the better chance for the other parties.
Agreed. Such incredible points. And this is why we're here. This is exactly why we're here. And I hope you guys are finding some confidence and say, hey, this is what I believe in. You can take those thoughts again and translate those into an op-ed piece. So just kind of give you a little nudge and a little encouragement that it may not be as difficult as you think once you have your passion and your opinion about why you believe in ranked choice voting. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
No, not a problem. Thank you. I kind of agree with most of what everybody has said. It allows you to vote your heart or your choice, and it establishes candidates who go to office with a governing mandate, a preference of greater than 50%. Now, my concern is that 2 states have recently banned it, in spite of the fact that their voters strongly support ranked choice voting. They banned it anyway. So I think that's an indication for how uncomfortable the parties are with this sort of electoral reform. And I know I've driven the car off the road a little bit here, but I think it's critical that we understand the obstacles to success. And so I just throw that out there because I think that whether they were to ban, whether our legislature was to ban ranked choice voting or just slow walk the implementation of ranked choice voting, it's like part and parcel. It's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Anyway, thanks. I appreciate it.
I just want to respond
That
to
was good,
Steve,
Thank you.
but I want to respond. I know it's Florida. I don't know the other state.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Well, let's look at it from party politics. Those are 2 states that are probably quite frightened of their Republican Party splitting. And that's why ranked choice voting would probably allow someone to win who was not in the, whoever wins the Republican primary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not, I think we all are aware, we should be aware of these things, but we're working in a state, I think, where we don't have that level of polarization. At least I don't think we do.
Knock on wood.
Okay.
I don't know.
just
That
saying,
last,
I think
that
right
last
now-
gubernatorial election, though, I don't know.
Yeah, I just want us, as we're trying to get ranked choice voting on the agenda, not to anticipate that there's going to be a preemptive sort of strike by the political powers. We should be aware of it, but I don't think our politics is that of Florida and Tennessee. So that's,
I'm gonna respectfully disagree. I think we are starting to see some strong party machines in different parts of the state that want to keep their status quo, which is why I like the fact that we open this up to all parties, because it's like the saying says, let the best man win. If you want my vote, work for it. If you sincerely think that you can carry through with getting the concerns that I have to the forefront, then let's go. If that means we have a switch of party, that's what we have. But that's what the democracy is supposed to be about in its purest form. It's been diluted and changed and reformed and all that wonderful stuff. And we want to take it back to its core essence, in which I believe our forefathers had intended to some extent, not including us, but that's a whole nother story. But I don't want to cut everyone off, but I want to get to Andrew had his hand, and I got to get back to April. And then I'm going to talk to John. Just want to be conscientious. Our meetings usually last about an hour. We have about 5 more minutes, but we will stay on as long as you would like to continue this discussion. But I want to make sure that I give order to those who had their hands up. So Andrew, and then April, and then John, I just saw you add your hand. And then I'll come back to you, Larry.
Thank you. I just wanted to share my opinion. And I actually have written a piece about this, and I'm trying to get it published, so I'm working on it. But I see ranked choice voting as a moderating influence, which I think is really needed. I think the parties have become so extreme, and that really it becomes a shield against extremism. And I think that we need to rein in those extremist elements. And it's just very hard to be too extreme when you have ranked choice voting. It's one of the reasons why I'm supportive of it, and I hope others are, and it's why I'm trying to get involved.
Yes, I'm with you. All right, go ahead, Mr. John. Thanks for joining
I'm
us.
sorry, Camille. This is Steve. Just last comment. I posted a link to an article that says California Dems and Florida Republicans agree on something. And I would encourage
Okay.
everybody to read that, because
Okay.
this is very anathema to the political parties. I believe. I think they fear it.
Yeah, it's good to know, but I'm sorry, it's good to know, but we're not afraid. We know that there's going to be opposition.
No. I didn't mean to
So-
suggest that, but we got to know who our enemies are.
Exactly. Go ahead, Andrew, real quick. I'm sorry.
Real quick, I know, I'm sorry. I think that the
That's
best
okay.
way to counter that, though, is if people in third parties, you do run up and down. And if you have people like, I'm supportive personally, I think Liz Cheney should run for president. I think that would teach the Republicans a lesson. And I think it's like, if that kind of stuff happens, then Republicans will be supporting ranked choice voting. But you need brave people within the parties to do that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Could I say something real quick in relation to that, Andrew?
Give me 1 second, because April's
Okay.
been patiently waiting. I want to get back to April, who had not had the floor, and give her that opportunity. Then I promise Larry, and then Steve, and then we'll come back to you. Just to keep order. Thank you, guys. This is great. I won't forget you, Steve.
I'm John.
Go ahead, John. Sorry about that. So you have the floor after
Oh, I
April,
do.
okay?
Me now? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'll
So
get April.
I agree with the people that are concerned with the establishment. I've lived in New Jersey all my life, and I'm familiar with Florida. New Jersey's worse than Florida and Tennessee when it comes to the established parties. And and I'll talk to Renee and everybody, I would love to present at one of these meetings to tell you what I went through to get pay-to-pay banned in my town. I mean, personal attacks. They spent $60,000 against in one town to prevent it in a special election. But I'll hold that to when I give you the whole story. But in New Jersey, and this is what I would say to my editorial comments, is the two parties, dominate everything in the state. Now, in particular, one party dominates the state. But ironically, even in places where the Republicans are out of power, you still have to pass through them, and everything's done to protect them. And I'll be honest with you, because I've worked within one party for years, because they were the underdogs here, to actually try to stop the bad stuff the other side was doing. But I would regret it when I would see that I'd actually win some elections with people, not be personally, but helping people. And as soon as they got behind closed doors, the two parties are no different. They work together. And they sit back and they figure out how they can get wealthy, how their people can get rich. And they don't do they lie to the people. They believe all the narrative. And everybody goes, votes, you're my hero, and the other people are Satan. And both sides do it. And then they are the Satans, and they get together and talk and say, all right, you can have this office. We'll give this judge to this guy, but you be quiet and don't bother me on this and this. And they will fight tooth and nail anything that threatens that. I got personal threats, but I did it anyway. And we won the referendum 6-1.
Yes.
I hate it, and I've been threatened. But I'd love to share the story and what they did and what they do. So, I mean, that's why I'm involved with this group, because I think the weirdest thing about this is the more they lied about it, and they could afford to, because we had $500, they had 50 grand.
Right.
When we talked to people and told them about how much people were giving to get contracts from the township, it was eye-opening. And we're going to have to go and do that same thing to the people of New Jersey and talk about, yeah, that guy's got an R next to his name and that guy's got a D next to his name, but they really are working together, and they're really screening only their lackeys into positions, into primaries. And that's how they keep their profit-making steal from the taxpayer operation going. Meanwhile, New Jersey costs more than another state to run. We have so many redundancies throughout the different levels of government, and we're paying that high taxes. Wake up, right? We need to share this with people. We have to open their eyes. It's the only way. And literally, your life will be threatened. But I think it's the only way we can save things, I'm done. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, John, for sharing that. April?
Yes. Well, my hand was up way in the beginning when Andrew had made the great suggestion of us sharing our personal perspectives of what motivates us to fight for ranked choice voting, and I definitely agree and understand all of the points that everyone else has made of what's brought us here, but my on ramp to supporting ranked choice voting was actually through my activism on other issues, in particular, a variety of environmental issues that have historically had bipartisan support that now are suffering from the same toxic polarization that any number of issues across anything you can imagine seems to be suffering from, everything except for ranked choice voting, which does have broad bipartisan support. But working on things like conservation or renewable energies or climate adaptation, planning, that's all of that. And just seeing the ridiculous lengths that, especially at the national level, but even at the state level, that politicians of either of the two major parties would go to just be different from their opponent, whether them being different was legitimate or real or not. Even if they agreed, they would go way out of their way to make it seem like they didn't, because that's what you need to do to win, given the current incentive structure and what motivates voters to turn out. And so really the strong promise of addressing that hyper-partisanship and the dysfunction that is caused by the way that we run our elections is what drew me into ranked choice voting, just recognizing that when not just the politicians, but the people, the voters, have this very strong black and white, us versus them mentality, where there's no room for gray area, there's no room for genuine dialogue. As long as we have the structure that creates that problem, we're not going to get anywhere on any of the issues that I care about, and probably that many of us here all care about. And so my on-ramp to ranked choice voting really was my dedication to working on a whole host of other issues where I see this same plague across all of them. And ranked choice voting is, in my mind, really the only viable solution, one that we can actually get past and that would address in a meaningful way the problems that are plaguing all of these other issues that I care so much about. So that's something that I wanted to share.
Well, thank you, April, and thank you for your patience and allowing me to concede to our guests to share. I want to go back to Larry real quick because I know his hand was up. And then if there are no others, just to be respectful of your time, I will kind of close the meeting out and then come back and remind you guys that you can stay on and chat with us a little bit longer if you like. Right?
Camila, maybe you can read Helen's comments and somebody else's comment, and Gil left comments in the chat.
Okay. Yes.
After Larry speaks.
Okay, go ahead, Larry. Let me find the comments.
Thanks, folks. On a more positive note, I want to do a reframe. Everything that I've read in terms of polling data about the electorate in our beloved Garden State suggests that unaffiliated and people who have dropped out of voting altogether form a larger percentage of the eligible voters than anybody who's involved in the Republican or Democrat Party.
There are more independent voters, Larry, actually. Registered independent.
There you go.
Yeah,
Let alone
the UNAs are really
who have
growing.
just given up. So one of the virtues of ranked choice voting is that the vitriol level has to go down, because you may be doing attacks against somebody's second choice or third choice, and they will push you. Maybe they won't even vote for you because you were nasty to the people that your first, second, or third choices. And I think that is a area that could be of great appeal to folks that are sick and tired of the hyperpartisanship and the really artificial divides, because it's true on the state level as well as the federal level that there's no daylight between the Democrats and Republicans in certain areas. So, but they create this dichotomy, this artificial dichotomy. So I think that's fertile ground for op-ed pieces, letters to the editor and stuff like that, is a way to combat hyperpartisanship and the vitriol that we find in our campaigns currently. Thank you.
No, thank you, Larry. Before we go on, I just want to share, I just posted Helen's thought. She said she had to jump off, but she said she did post a link of area papers that can be useful to our groups. I reposted that. She said also RCV is important to her because she lives in a super blue city with crowded primary races, and she want to choose those in office to win with the majority support. So that was one of her comments. I just want to ask everybody real quick, put your hands together like this and give yourselves applause. Come on, everybody clap for yourselves because you just started your rough draft of your op-ed. Who said you can't write an op-ed? Who says? So your comments, your passion about what you feel about ranked choice voting and why it is that you're here today is the beginning steps to you translating that into an op-ed piece. TJ gave us a wonderful template. It's very user-friendly. Put that in there, tell your story. Editors like it when it's personal anyway, you know, instead of just all these statistics. So thank you so much for sharing and engaging in your op-ed piece. Thank you. One last thing, and I promise you, I'm gonna get you guys out of here because I know some of you are gonna start to jump off, but there's so many ways to get involved. Thank you for writing your op-ed pieces. Another way you can get involved is join one of our Voter Choice New Jersey teams. April gave us an overview of all the teams. Some of us need help like me. I am the fundraising team, it's just me. And we know that bringing money into initiatives like this is critical. We have been able to garner a lot of success from our grassroots supporters and donations. We've been challenging those who are members of organizations or corporations to see if they would want to make a donation and get it matched. So money is also key. You can join or start a local action in your town. Agnes has done that. Agnes is on fire down in the Chesterfield area, and she's trying to take media and make her movement in her local area jump on board with ranked choice. We always have petitions. We're always out canvassing as the weather is breaking. It is another way for you to get involved. Again, we talked about writing a letter to the editor. And if you do need more help with that, April has her contact list. TJ gave us a great template. If you didn't copy that, I'll repost that. And of course, the most important thing is money, 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 money. One of the goals that we have here for Voter Choice New Jersey is we want to get us a part-time or full-time organizer who can do a lot of the work that some of us have been carrying. And many of us are full-time employees. Some of us are business owners, parents, and we're still doing all this on a volunteer basis. Even if we can use funds to just encourage us and to thank us for our volunteer work, would say, hey, here's a couple bucks for gas, or here's something to add to your Zoom account. I don't know, but we need money. So this is where each and every one of you can take part. You know, in church, they pass a little offering plate, but we're not going to pass an offering plate. We're just going to tug at your hearts and hope that whatever you said tonight, if you truly believe that you would make a long-term commitment to this. And I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but I guarantee you when ranked choice voting comes to New Jersey, it will definitely be worth it. So we're challenging you to make a one-time, or if you really think you want to be in this for a while, do like I do and just make a monthly pledge. If it's $5, $10, whatever you can spare, believe me, it does help. Once again, I'm Kamula Tillman. I'm your team lead fundraiser and your facilitator for tonight. Thank you all so much for joining us. This was great. Our meeting is officially over, but we would love to sit around and talk to you and share stories if you so fit and you can. But if you can't, thank you again for joining. And if we don't get to see you, our next statewide meeting is going to be April 16th, 15th. I always get it wrong. So if you do want to come back.
I think it's the 10th. I think it's the 10th.
Yeah?
I
Oh, I got something on the 16th. Why did I put the 16th? I always put us on the third Sunday. It's the 10th, everyone. So I'm going to challenge you. If you came today, you like what you heard, you got excited, come back again. Share what else you've learned within that month, because there's going to be a lot that's shaking in this state within the next 30 days. So come back and share, and also bring a friend. All right. You wrote some amazing op-eds. Don't leave them here in this meeting. Continue to spread the word. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Kamula.